RP dip, yeah.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, welcome to the one, the only, the most epic pro wrestling podcast on the internet. Squared Circle Shenanigans.
Ooh, hey everybody, welcome. It's been a few weeks. Hey Keith.
Hello, friends. We're here.
Hey,
on
Jeremiah.
episode 16
Hi.
with our co-hosts
I know we got some
and
special
of course,
guests in the
our
building.
guests for the week. We have the amazing Nate Matson with us,
That's right.
and the Bachelor Benjamin Boone.
That's me.
Ooh, yes. Welcome, guys.
Super excited. Can't
It's
wait.
awesome.
Thank you very much. Excited to be here. Thank you for inviting us into your humble abode.
Of course.
Of course. Should be an awesome show. But first, let's thank all of our sponsors. Let's go with Amaya's Fresh Mexican Grill, the Little Brown Jug, The Mint Cannabis, Monroe Sports Center, Lane's Pizzeria for the best pizza needs, Mugsy's, 8 Mile Vodka, Deb's Floral, FU Wrestling, coming up soon,
July
IWR,
7th.
DTW, and Pro Wrestling Edge. Thank all of you for your love and support. And let's get on with today's show, fellers.
All right. What do you got for us on today's Keith?
Today's Keith is pick a year, and our year is the year 2003.
That's a good year. It's one of my favorite. There's a lot of good matches and stuff that happened that year.
There are. I think I'll personally go with my first one, which is Triple H and Shawn Michaels from the Raw of in December 29th, which is like one of the most brutal, wild matches between the two men. What else should we go from there?
Scotty froze.
I'm fried. I'm sorry.
Oh boy,
That's why it's shenanigans.
That's right.
This-
I'm
got some
the
shenanigans going on.
shenanigan.
Gonna be a
in
fun
The
one.
squared circle.
We're live,
I'm trying to remember
We are
that
live.
match. You said that was on Raw?
yeah,
Okay.
Raw.
I mean,
December
those
29th,
guys had great chemistry, so they never had a bad match together.
for sure.
No,
That's very true.
is that the one with the double pin that led to the Royal Rumble 04 match?
I believe so.
Okay. Yep. That was
I
a
believe so.
very good match. So, like, I obviously wasn't a wrestler in 2003. I was only 17, but I
Right.
mean, very, very heavy into my fandom at that point.
Absolutely.
I think
Sure.
I think like the matches that really stuck out to me. I didn't watch it live, but Austin Rock, their third match from WrestleMania, but watching
Yes.
it after the fact, really didn't sink in about that was Austin's final match. That was until last year. But also the Brock Lesnar and Kurt Angle series from
Yes.
2003.
Every
Yes.
Especially that SmackDown where they had that Iron Man match.
Yes.
Nobody talks about it to this day. But
It's
it was
the greatest
brilliant.
Iron Man match ever.
September 16th.
Like somebody takes advantage of, oh yeah, I'll take one L, beat him down with a chair.
Yeah.
Ah, man.
That's so good.
very good. Not to mention Brock Lesnar breaking his neck, damn near.
Bro, that was-
Shooting star press at WrestleMania.
That was like the 2003 could be summed up by me. It's the year of Kurt Angle,
Oh, yeah.
right? It is
sure.
WWE run. It's prime Kurt before he leaves and gives us Perk Angle, which is the premier Kurt Angle when it comes to like just performing. Like, I mean, you don't have to like why he was able to perform that way, but like the man went hard when he was in TNA.
Sure.
But like this was, in my opinion, his best WWE run because like he was
Oh, yeah,
able
for
to
sure.
go with somebody who can do the wrestling with him, but both of them could show that we're beyond just a mat wrestler. We're entertainers. We're the full professional wrestling package. And like Kurt just established, like he got to the point where he was so over that you're now like, all right, what do we do with Kurt? We give him people. And then you now have, which is also Pro Wrestling Illustrated's Tag Team of the Year 2003. You got the greatest tag team ever, right? Which is Shelton Benjamin and Haas, which is amazing. And now
Mhm.
Kurt's able to charismatically carry other people and elevate them to a level that which Kurt's on, which made, because they just came in, they were no like Shelton's been seen before, like he wrestled with Brock in the OV dub days, right? But like on a major level audience, no one knows who Shelton is. But then all of a sudden he's up there main event status, and the only way that works is if you have the guy in front being able to carry it. And again, Kurt stepped up. That his year, dog.
That's fair.
Year of Angle.
For sure. For sure.
And I think too, like, I mean, yeah, tag team wrestling was extremely strong in the WWE at that point. I mean, but one thing that I think that's really important to talk about, Los Guerreros. Had an excellent team.
absolutely.
And especially even when Chavo was briefly hurt, and Eddie and Tajiri had that brief title reign and their team as well. I mean, they had excellent chemistry. I think that we really saw the beginnings of main event Eddie Guerrero at that point in 2003.
Absolutely.
Oh yeah.
So
Mhm.
I mean, Nate, what do you think? I mean,
No.
Yeah.
I mean, I was still watching it and I was in the business, but
Yeah.
those are the guys that we studied,
Right.
because that was the athleticism started to pick up, and it was more gritty, it was more hard hitting. So, then that started to, kind of flow into the independents, so then you'd start seeing more hard hitting matches on the indies. So, and especially Kurt Angle, and it's not so much that he carried anybody. It's just, those guys were so green, and and even Kurt was only a few years in the business. So a lot of people don't realize, he wasn't around that long, but he picked it up so fast. And when you're on the road that much working with top guys, you just absorb it like a sponge. But they knew that Shelton Benjamin and Charlie Haas were, just blue chippers. So they said, why not give them the rub, have them aligned with Kurt Angle. So that was the best way. And that's how you elevate people. Like you said, it's like, you got to put them with the top guys. And then now the association in the fans' eyes, that's the whole deal. The perception is, well, he's associated with Kurt Angle, or these guys are, so then they must be top guys too. So it was a great booking. And like I said, all the matches were great. Los Guerreros, Tajiri. Yeah, it was a really wild time.
For tag team, Charlie Haas and Shelton Benjamin, definitely that I would say one of the top tag teams of that year. But they had a match with Billy Kidman and Rey Mysterio, former WCW tag champs together, and it from beginning till end, it was all action packed, red hot. It's just super underrated.
Yeah.
That tag team match. I don't even remember what pay-per-view it's from now, but it's super underrated.
And the thing with that too is Kidman and Rey Mysterio had so much experience working WCW and opening all the nitros and the pay-per-views. The OVW style, much different than the WCW cruiserweight style. So Shelton Benjamin and Haas got to learn a lot by working with Ray and Kidman, those guys, that was the whole point of working with those guys, was like to see what you can get out of them. And those guys just excelled really well. They picked it up and had great matches. And it's kind of hard when you're working guys from a different style. And that's how you learn, because it's like you have to work with guys better than you. So, and that's what those guys were doing. They were still green coming out of OVW, working with, experienced cruiserweights, especially like Rey Mysterio, who was just blowing everybody out of the water.
Right.
For sure.
And Kidman doesn't get the credit that he deserves.
That's so true.
He wasn't a big talker. He was always affiliated with like the Filthy Animals or something like that. But as far as like believability, his selling was great. He didn't do anything that was like too unbelievable. Like, like he would do the shooting star press, but that was usually his biggest move. He'd save it for the end. The rest of it was wrestling, drop kicks and flying head scissors. And, he did things that were believable that people could, digest. It wasn't just like stupid stuff for no reason. So,
yeah. And that's why I feel that Billy Kidman was one of those premier cruiserweights in WCW and WWE. And people forget too, that towards the end of WCW, Billy Kidman had a feud with Hulk Hogan.
Yeah,
you could say what you want about the booking, about all that, but I mean, just for the fact that you're in a program with Hulk Hogan, I mean, you learn so much from him, and that's why that Billy Kidman, he's one of the top producers in WWE today from all that the experience that he collected over the decades.
I was gonna on the Billy Kidman train, because huge fan of Billy Kidman, always was growing up. This is the era. I'm still not out of high school yet at this time. I loved Billy back in the day in WCW as Sick Boy when he's in the flock and stuff, right?
Yeah.
Because he's not a talking guy, but his facials, my guy can give you any emotion with his face during the match. He's not an outside the match storyteller, but in the ring during those 5 to 15 minutes, my man can you'll feel emotions just by oh, I feel hurt because he's hurt, or man, I'm mad because Billy's mad. No, he was phenomenal. And the shooting star press, nowadays we see it all the time, and now I think somebody can do a double now. It evolves because athleticism evolves and stuff. But at that time, that move was sick. Nobody was doing that. He jumped forward But then he went backwards. But then he went dog.
I was
Like
in
what?
6th grade at the time, so I was like, like,
Yeah.
huge fan. Obviously, still a fan, obviously, but like watching him do the shooting star press was wild. And like just anytime, it would always make me hype.
So Nate, I want to know because you said you were wrestling at this time. It's 2003, right? Where am I seeing Nate? What Nate Matson am I seeing? Where am I seeing this Nate Matson at? And how long at this point has Nate Matson been Nate Matson?
So 2003 was actually a fun year. I had started in 96. So at this point, I'm almost 10. Well, let's see, 7 years in.
That's
7 years in the business. Just, making as many towns as I can, getting booked out of state. TNA had just started roughly, who knows, 6 months to a year before that, maybe 2002. So a lot of TNA guys were getting booked in Michigan. And there's a promotion. There was actually another promotion called the IWR, but instead of Insane Wrestling Revolution, it was called the Independent Wrestling Revolution.
Awesome.
And the promoters were the Bumpin' Uglies. So they might have heard of them, the Mysterious Movado. They used to have a punk rock band, and they used to have these rock and wrestling shows where their band would play and then they would wrestle, and then they'd book a lot of indie guys that worked for AT Huck or Border City guys like myself. So then the promotion took off. I mean, it was a big promotion in like near Detroit. We would run at the the Warp Tour. We would run outside like we did these shows called Revolution, which was part of IWR, which was like in Royal Oak Music Theater, like all these big venues.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, and we would bring in luchadors and stuff like that. But so we had brought in Sonny Siaki, we brought in Jorge Estrada and all these guys. So just to back it up a little bit, in 2000, we had a wrestling school, and it was like NWA Michigan Wrestling School. We actually had it like started in Monroe, and then we moved around from building to building. But Saban came, and he was only 18 years old. And so we trained Chris Saban, and then we took him over to Border City, and that's how he got involved with TNA because Scott D'Amore. So by the time IWR was coming, Saban was one of my students, so we wrestled all the time. And then when Saban went to TNA, because of association with D'Amore and Border City, I got to wrestle Saban on Explosion for the X Division title. So that was probably 2003.
That is so cool.
And then, so the IWR, like I said, was bringing in TNA guys. So Saban was a regular.
Right.
So we had Saban, we had Jimmy Jacobs, we had Alex Shelley. They were all green guys, Jacobs was probably one of the guys with more experience. He started in like 99 at like 15 years old.
Wow.
So I met him when he was really young. And then we brought in AJ Styles. So I wrestled AJ Styles in 2003. Just kind of, did some stuff with TNA and a lot of stuff around. Michigan was really big. I mean, there wasn't a lot of places to work, but like, if you worked in Detroit, if you worked for AT Huck, who was a referee for ECW, he was running shows called IWF, Insane Wrestling Federation. So a lot of insane stuff in Michigan.
That's right.
Wow.
But the hardcore scene, we like there's how like there's the death matches now. Like I saw like the second, and third incarnations of those, back 20 years ago. So it all goes around full circle. So
that is really cool.
I didn't do no death matches back then.
I didn't think you would, but
instead he's out here putting out instant classics.
I'm
AJ
old
Styles.
school. I like the old school wrestling. Give me Jerry Lawler, and we're happy. Good.
That's awesome.
Nice. All right. I think I'm gonna go back to Brock and Kurt for a second. We're gonna put them together a different way, which is the Royal Rumble. Brock Lesnar winning the 2003 Royal Rumble, but the match I'm specifically talking about was Kurt Angle and Chris Benoit, and that classic at the Royal Rumble in 2003.
That was voted the top match of 2003.
That is very true.
I think Chris Benoit is one of the greatest technical wrestlers of all time.
By
There's
far.
a lot.
Oh yeah,
By far.
But you're not allowed to talk about him anymore. Apparently, you know what I mean.
Well, it's not the fact that you can't talk about it anymore. It's just you can talk
certain things.
Well, right. I mean, but just for the fact that all of his in-ring accomplishments, his skills, and everything will forever be superseded by the final weekend of his life.
Right.
Right.
For sure.
And for people, fans, or even, I mean, it seems like there's this upswell of people in the independents or people starting out that think, well, we should just bypass that and induct Chris Benoit in the Hall of Fame. No, absolutely not.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Okay.
I mean, you can't have O.J. Simpson be inducted into the Football Hall of Fame
That's
because
very
of what
true.
he's done.
That's true.
You know, like I said, Chris Benoit's actions in the final weekend of his life almost brought the business down to its knees.
For sure.
Yeah.
Most definitely.
I remember in training, the next week, and just kind of wondering like what's going to happen. Not that WWE is going to go out of business or anything like
Right.
that, but how are people going to view professional wrestling after
Right.
one of its top stars did what they did what he did to his family?
Right. For sure.
Because of what he has done,
What-
Well,
it
that's the
just goes to
thing.
show.
Yeah. It's wrestling already has
You
enough
guys are
black
heroes.
eyes. It's like look at Dark Side of the Ring. It pulls
Every
out.
week, it's a new dark eye.
For real.
It pulls it. The business was so different back in the day, but even the Chris Benoit thing just made it so like how how could that happen? And then they start looking at like his brain and all this other stuff. Like, did he have brain damage? Was what happened? So it's there's so many questions that have been left unanswered.
Right.
Especially because his family and
Right.
it's so terrible. It's sad.
Right.
Yeah.
But back to the Royal
match.
Rumble 03
Yes,
match,
yes.
excellent match. And again, that's an illustration of how you're able to work the technical style, the things that both Kurt and Benoit did,
Absolutely.
mixed with wonderful psychology, pacing, all that stuff. So I mean, it's absolutely something to still watch to this day.
Oh, yeah.
And that's the thing too, is like I've always been more of a technical wrestler, so the high spots are one thing to get the crowd excited, but those matches, that's a lot of work. People don't realize how fast you have to be in such great condition,
For sure.
cardiovascular, and to be able to just roll around and wrestle on the mat, not even get up, run, jump, do spots. It's like you're literally especially when you got two competitive guys like that, no matter what the situation is, they're going at it full force.
Mhm.
Nobody's pulling anything. If they're going to lay it in, they're going to lay it in. If they're throwing a guy, they're throwing a guy. They don't need any cooperation. So it's just a matter of working together, but also making this the most intense match. And Benoit was already intense. Angle still, even up to his final matches, was very intense. He gave everything in the ring.
Mhm.
So that's why I wish that some wrestlers would emulate Kurt Angle as far as like how he approached the business. He made it look as realistic as possible because that's all he knew. He was an amateur wrestler, so he couldn't hold back. He had to go full force. But now you see a lot of wrestlers that you can tell they're holding back and they're not. It just makes it look not as crisp as a Kurt Angle. So
For sure.
Yep. And Nate, I know that you and I, on our many drives together, over the years, I mean, we've discussed about things like that and how people often often confuse people working fast or doing stuff because, well, they did it. It's like, well, people don't understand of the skill, the cardiovascular condition that both Angle, Benoit, Eddie, whomever had.
Brock is a monster. I've stood next to him, and the man will take up a complete doorway. I mean, he's just humongous. So it's like for him to be able to get in there and roll around and wrestle and go hold for hold with a Kurt Angle, a man that size shouldn't have that conditioning. And so that's why a lot of fans don't appreciate what a Brock Lesnar can do and what kind of athlete that he is. I love him. I think he's awesome.
Me too. Listen,
yeah.
the suplex city. I think the suplex city Lesnar, and then the Lesnar that we just had,
Cowboy Brock.
Cowboy
Brock.
Brock. Like, happy-go-lucky Lesnar has been my favorite. Like he's the same, just a big old monster, but just
Now he's
a good
happy.
guy.
We put
Yeah.
Brock over probably like 5 minutes every episode of the show
We
because
really
like
do.
Brock Lesnar is literally one of the most underrated workers of like any generation. Like you can look at any match my man has had. Like you can like who he was in there with. No, here's the thing: if Brock don't want to make you look good, Brock will not make you look good.
Well,
Like-
it also has to make sense. How can you hurt him?
Thank you.
Yep.
Exactly.
He is not going to make himself look bad. He's not going to expose the business and have somebody pick him up.
Right.
It's impossible. You couldn't even grab his ankle. He'd just kick you off like a little, dog, chihuahua. But that's the thing is Brock has great psychology. He knows, and he's legit UFC champion. I mean, to me, Brock is like up there with like a Hulk Hogan as far as like everybody knows who he is.
For
He
sure.
brings credibility to pro wrestling, and his matches, make sense for being as big as he is. So,
And yeah, absolutely. And I think in terms of, I mean, he is the most legit guy, not just in WWE, but in all of pro wrestling.
Yeah.
And probably one of the most legit professional wrestlers ever, up there with the Luthezes and up there with the Briscoes and things like that. And yeah, and like you said, how can you hurt him? You have to have somebody, whoever he's paired with, be able to legitimately beat him. And I know it's still a hot topic to this day, but him beating Undertaker at WrestleMania, breaking the streak, was absolutely the right call. He was the guy to do it. And that's what legitimized him even further. Because, when he came back, his runs were a little so-so, but that put him further over the top. We wouldn't have gotten Suplex City.
Yeah, you needed something
Exactly.
shocking. And it was shocking. It was like shocking. Like people always say when Ivan Koloff beat Bruno, you could hear a pin drop because Bruno was such a dominant champion for so long.
Yep.
They couldn't believe it. So that's kind of like the same feeling they went with. It's
My
like,
heart sank.
I can't believe it.
Yeah.
No one's
Like,
ever
did
beat
that
this
really just
What
happen?
just happened?
That one guy's face describes everybody's
Yeah,
heart,
and you
man.
still
He's
to this day see him in packages. Like,
Yeah, absolutely.
I couldn't believe my eyes.
Yeah.
Like, I didn't think that was ever gonna happen.
It was probably, akin to Koloff beating Bruno.
Yeah. Exactly.
Our generation's version
Yeah.
of that. And plus, too, people forget, if Undertaker didn't want that to happen, he would have said no.
Yep.
But
Very
Undertaker trusted Brock enough and knew that it was going to catapult him to that next level. Brock, it turned Brock into a Hall of Famer after that moment.
There was only 4 people in that entire building who knew what was gonna happen that night.
Yeah.
That was Brock, Vince, Paul, and Taker.
And I mean,
Yeah.
to
It
be
was a
honest,
last-minute
that's how
decision.
it should be.
Yeah,
That's how the business should be.
That
It should be
there's-
between the booker and the talent. We don't need to know,
Nope.
and I hate spoilers. I hate
For real.
stuff like that. But I'm glad that
Absolutely.
in that instance, only
That
the
was-
right people knew about it.
I still get I don't like seeing the 21-1. Like, I don't like seeing that.
I love how the music didn't play because even like the sound, people were like, what?
Wait,
No, that's not right.
let the moment speak
That's
for
the
itself.
wrong theme
It
song.
definitely did.
Yeah.
They didn't even know.
Even production was like,
we,
was that supposed to happen?
we fucked up.
Somebody make the end one graphic.
Yeah.
They didn't have it ready.
They've never made it before ever.
Yeah.
They had 22-0 ready.
You know.
They did.
Right.
They had like 5 minutes to make it. Hurry up.
But
Oh, man.
I would love, if the ability to time travel were real, to go back to Koloff beating Bruno,
Just
that
to
moment,
see it.
just compare the
Yes.
two moments,
Yeah.
to compare the feeling.
Yeah. The atmosphere in the audience. Yeah.
Because I know there's very limited footage that exists of that match.
Wow.
I don't think the sound quality was
Yeah.
present, but
Best.
How long was Bruno champion at the time? Wasn't it?
I mean,
like
at that point, almost, I think, a little over 8 years.
That sounds right. Yeah.
That was his first run, and I think his second run was 3.5 years.
my grandpa used to tell me stories about Bruno. Like my grandpa seen Bruno wrestle in person.
Yeah.
So
That's awesome.
so overall, Bruno Sammartino was champion for over 7,000 days,
That's great.
which
Yeah,
is
that's-
over 10 years.
That's the one record
His
that will
first
never be
record
broken.
was 2,083 days, and his second was like 4,600 and something.
Mhm.
You just-
Do you know that off the top of your head?
I kind of looked it up.
That's
Oh, you looked it up? Okay. I was about to
I
say,
had- I had-
impressive.
Well, we usually do.
you should have just went with it,
We usually
Keith.
do trivia, and one of
I
the
mean-
questions was who's the longest champion,
That-
who was the longest reigning champion, and it was Bruno Sammartino. With the record was 2,803 days,
Yeah.
and then 2,083, and then 4,000 something.
I mean, people loved him. I reference old school wrestling all the time because, especially like I'm involved with a lot of different training schools and stuff like that. And it's like, if you don't know where we came from, you're not going to be able to go into the future. You're not going to understand what this business is about. And, for Bruno to be that dominant, it's like you have to figure out why did people love him? And it's just the way he presented himself and the way he was presented. He could sell. He was a great brawler. I mean, he was a great champion. He carried himself professionally. And that's just something that a lot of people don't look at. It's like this man was respected, like Arnold Schwarzenegger and all these stars, you know, from the 70s and even before that, like looked at him as like a celebrity, you know, like he was like the Italian Superman, you know. I mean, especially in
It's like a
New York.
Noki, like Antonio.
Exactly. You know,
Right.
there's always somebody
There you
that people can relate to and look up to.
When Ring of Honor had their WrestleMania weekend shows in Detroit in 2007, they brought in Bruno
Wow.
the first
Wow.
night, I believe, and I got to meet him, you know, being in line. I mean, I was just starting my wrestling training at that point and only had, you know, a couple minutes to, you know, talk to him and all that stuff. They didn't allow photography. Ring of Honor didn't. But even in my brief interactions with him, I got it, you know, as far as why he was the
It
guy.
just gave me
Yeah.
goosebumps.
You know, because of how he
Absolutely
carried
awesome.
himself and how he was so personal to his fans. You know, and he talked about, and he asked me where I was from, and I told him Toledo, and he's like, "Oh, I remember wrestling there back in the 60s and 70s. A lot of great memories
Wow.
over there." You know, and his picture at my home office, it still sits on my shelf there. You know,
Awesome.
That's awesome.
yeah.
Super cool.
You know, but yeah, to Nate's point, I mean, everybody that's coming in, no matter where you train from, I mean, you have to study, learn, and respect the business of where it came from to where it is now.
So yeah, and just funny thing about like Bruno. So my trainer, his name was Irish Mickey Doyle. He was a 1970 NWA Rookie of the Year. He wrestled. His very first match was against Classy Freddie Blassie. He
No big deal.
wrestled-
No big
he-
deal.
I knew that.
No
he
big
wrestled
deal.
I knew that.
countless times. He wrestled Luthez. So he even tagged with Bruno Sammartino in Japan against Baba and Jumbo Tsuruta. So it's like that's another reason why old school is so, you know, ingrained in me, is because all that stuff's been kind of like passed down, you know, all the knowledge and all the respect for it. So, you know, and Bruno, man, he was a class act. He treated my trainer really well, Mickey, and opened doors for him to where he could work for the WWF, you know, back in the day. So, you know, it's pretty cool.
And it was Mickey's birthday just the other day,
Yeah.
and one of my favorite memories actually was wrestling you at Mega,
Yeah.
that outdoor fair show where Mickey was your manager.
Yeah, I brought him in. He was in town, so I had
Wow.
him manage me.
Yep, and it was cool too. Like as I was working heat on you, like I. At one point, I dropped a knee drop on you. It's like, oh man, that's a Crippler Ray Stevens knee
Oh, yeah.
drop you did. I'm like, all right,
Yeah, he's doing commentary.
you know, put me over as I'm beating you up. You
Yeah.
know,
He was saying some off-color things to me, and he was my manager. He was trying to get me to
Wow.
crack up. And I'm like, shut up.
See, that's one of my favorite things is like watching wrestlers break. Like
Yeah.
That's absolutely awesome.
our truth is the best. I've already said
Yeah.
that before. Our truth is the best at breaking people. I
That's
think.
very true.
It's awesome.
But
You gotta have some fun, you know. Especially being on the road, it's a lot of stress. You know, just making towns and just the responsibilities that those guys have. It's like when you can have a little bit of fun with your responsibilities, that's perfect. So.
that's awesome.
Absolutely.
What do you got? What do you got next, Keith?
Well, my last match that I would say would be a retirement match, and it's Team Bischoff versus Stone Cold at Survivor Series of 2003.
Listen, that was great. That whole 2003 was a wonderful year total.
Absolutely
Goldberg,
fantastic.
everything like Stone Cold being and Bischoff co-GMs was the best thing ever.
Brock Lesnar won the WWE Championship and the Royal Rumble. Just
Think about
destroyed
that
all.
though. Think about Brock. That's 20 years ago.
He was the youngest
And then he just did it
WWE
again.
champion.
Yeah, and so I mean that just is another credit to his ability, man. It's like he can still stay in shape, especially go to UFC, come back, and then he had that illness.
That's what I was just
You
thinking.
know,
Yeah,
was able to survive. It was almost deathly. You know, he almost died.
Mhm.
Comes back.
He was literally, so everything he accomplished, right up until like we found out about the stomach thing, he literally only accomplished at 75% ability to go. Like he was never able to go 100%
Right.
because he had that thing.
You-
Like how scary is that?
you don't hear that too often of people fighting or with diverticulitis, which is what he had. You know,
What,
at like
in the
what
UFC?
75% speed.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like it just speaks to his level. Just he's a freak of nature.
He really is.
Absolutely.
You know, and 20 years ago, it does not seem like that long
And
ago.
he doesn't look old.
No.
You know what I mean? Like he looks like he does. He was like a little bit more fresh baby face looking. He's more chiseled in the face. But
If you
I mean,
shave him,
same- yeah,
he'll look baby face
yeah,
again.
Exactly. But But I mean, his body still looks the same. I mean, he looks incredible. so.
Wild.
Him and Big Show breaking. I was in 6th grade, like I said already, but like that's when they broke the ring was in
Oh, yeah.
2003. That I didn't think that was supposed to happen. I didn't think that was a spot.
Sure.
Really
What
didn't think it was a
happened?
spot when I was a kid. Well, you know what I mean. Like I didn't think that was supposed to be a thing. Like the ring was supposed. I didn't. You know.
Oh yeah.
And I
Which is a great moment, and I know that's been
And awe.
replicated a couple times since. But I mean, the original still the best
Yeah,
in terms
absolutely.
of shock factor, how it's presented, and realistically, like if you were to superplex a 500-pounder
Yeah.
from the
Something
top
has
rope
to
to the
happen.
ring,
It happened.
it should happen.
Yeah,
Something
especially
has
Rock's
to happen.
300, so that's 800 pounds.
coming
Yeah.
down.
Right.
You know,
listen, and I
Absolutely.
just-
Absolutely. So, but back to that Survivor Series
Yes.
match. I think that's probably one of the best Survivor Series matches I think ever. And I know
Absolutely.
the final two were what Shawn Michaels and Orton.
Yes.
And that's another thing too. Shawn Michaels had a hell of a 2003.
Jericho at WrestleMania.
The match
was
with
awesome.
Jericho,
Yes.
you know, it came back I think even better
Yeah.
than when he left in 1998.
Yeah.
Um,
Absolutely.
you know, the doctors told him, okay, you're only going to have a couple matches. And he had, what, a 7-year run?
Yeah.
And after that?
And 2 massive matches with the Undertaker.
Had a couple matches a week.
Right.
Sure. Yeah. I mean,
He'll wrestle like 3 times a week.
oh, yeah. You know, and tearing it up on Raw every week and all the pay-per-views and
Yep.
helping the younger guys come up. I mean, I'm not talking 2003, but later on, like your Chris Masters,
Yeah.
you know,
Yes.
helping those guys,
Carlito.
getting them to that next level. Carlito, all that. Yeah, I mean that Survivor Series match was great, and then like the nice heartfelt promo from Stone Cold afterwards because it was held in Dallas.
Yep.
You know, talking about how he started in Dallas and ended in Dallas, and then a couple weeks later came back as the sheriff on Raw, which
Yep.
kind of undid, you know, everything.
Everything.
But you know what? It was great to see him. I mean, people knew he was going to be back.
Oh yeah.
I mean, that's not a big deal.
It's not how you end your career. What a
He did a wonderful job at not being able to do his job, which is wrestle. Like
probably killed him.
he did the best.
Oh, yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah,
At just being an on-air character was
Yeah.
wonderful.
Well, even like, you know, this is jumping forward, but Brian Danielson, when he was like a GM, they couldn't, you know, they let him just do stuff on TV. He said he was driving him crazy. He
Oh, I
hated
bet.
that he couldn't get in the ring, you know. So I'm glad that he was able to, you know,
Yeah,
he continue his career now. But
got hurt last night.
I was gonna say,
That's what I
God,
heard,
that
though.
match last night was
Fucking spectacular.
fantastic.
Forbidden Door was awesome.
You know, and
Most
I,
parts of it.
yeah, and I guess to jump forward a little bit of like what I do at IWR with the Bachelor Pad, you know, I take inspiration from guys like Stone Cold, of course, Roddy Piper.
Right.
He's the template
Mhm.
for having, you know, the Piper's Pit, and everyone
course.
has emulated since. The Miz, you know, guys like that. I was just thinking about it on the way here. I remember at AIW when I was a regular there, people that were top acts in the indies then and are now in major companies or people that are still making a great living. When it came time for promos, they'd run away.
Yeah.
I never got it, you know, or they do their best to not do promos. Promos are your moneymaker.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, it's cool to do moves and, you know, things like that. Be a great in-ring technician, but like that's how you complete yourself as a pro wrestler, by doing the promos, doing the talk bits and things that, and they've learned now since, you know,
Yeah.
obviously, but I mean, you know, it's funny of how people will, especially fans online, will give Miz flack. You know, all he does is just, you know, talk and everything. Miz is one of the best guys in the
Oh, yeah,
company
for
right
sure.
now
To
because
talk.
he's so versatile,
Mm-hmm.
and especially what he did at WrestleMania, the impromptu matches that he had. It shows the amount of faith that WWE has in him and being able
Just go out.
to do it all.
Yep.
Go do your thing.
I mean, he could be he could be WWE champion. He doesn't need it, but he could. You know, he's been to the top. You know, he's worked his way up, and that came from him being on the microphone.
Yeah.
The-
Well, and then a lot of fans don't understand. They think that it's just all about the wrestling. I mean, you have to do media. You have to be like an ambassador. You got to go talk to companies, sponsors. You know, M&M's. You know, oh, M&M's wants to sponsor our pay-per-view. You know, we need somebody to, you know, represent us. Send them is. You know,
Right.
the business side of the business, fans don't really look at. They
Right.
don't look at. I mean, WB, it's not about wrestling. You know, they it's about the characters and it's about the stories. But I mean, if you can't talk, if you can't, you know, be well spoken, you're basically useless, because they can find anybody off the street to throw in and have a match. They need somebody that's going to draw you in, you know, and talk you into the building, you know, in some way, whether they hate you or they love you.
Right.
But yeah, Miz is great. And he can have good matches with anybody, you know, and he's smart. He doesn't do things. And this is old school, but you always hear about guys getting injured. Oh, you know, Danielson broke his arm. I don't know what he did, but you know, this guy's hurt. This guy's hurt. In the old days, if you got hurt, you didn't get paid. You know, like that was the way the contracts were. Is like you had to make the towns, you had to wrestle. Now, obviously, it's a different time, but you have to have that mentality, man. If I do something dumb in the ring and I hurt myself,
I'm not gonna be able to.
My family's not gonna be able to eat this week. You know, so Miz is smart. He never had to do anything off the top rope. He never had to destroy his body. Taking bumps destroys your body. Fans that understand, it's just a thin mat. It's steel and wood, and you're getting thrown. And you know, it's like if you take karate as a kid, you learn how to tumble and roll. That's all wrestling is. You learn to protect yourself, but it's not a foolproof. Hey, I'm going to be completely fine on this. You know, like we were talking about, you know, however you go through a table, you know, you can go sideways, upside down, land on your head, you know, breach.
Just go through the way that doesn't hurt you.
Just go through it.
You go through it, but there's going to be consequences no matter what, because it's a real table. You
Right.
know?
Right. You know, just to say, you know, on that point, like people forget Ricky the Dragon Steamboat's career ended on a simple bump.
Right.
From the second rope.
Yeah, he landed on his tailbone because he got pushed. He was going for a superplex and he got pushed off. And I think he tried to bump, but just the way he was landed, he landed like in a sit up. So his tailbone, and it cracked vertebrae in his back.
Ooh.
And that took him out of wrestling. So then, and he didn't come back until the Jericho thing.
Wow,
You know?
which was just recently too.
Yeah, well, I mean, it was a while ago, but it was just like, you know, the doctors told him it was done, and that's like one of the greatest wrestlers of all time. You know, and so
my favorite match of all time is Macho Man versus Ricky Steamboat. I wasn't even born. I wasn't even alive, but that's
the year. 87 was the year I started to really like fall in love with wrestling. I saw it at my friend's house in 86. I thought, this is weird. And I didn't have cable. You know,
this is weird.
And then it started,
different.
I saw it on regular TV. It was on Saturday mornings. You could watch it. It came on like around noon, but you watch your cartoons, and then Pee Wee's Playhouse, and then wrestling would come on. And you know, it was great, you know, and I was hooked. But Savage and Steamboat was, I mean, that was a game changer, you know. But I loved Hogan. I loved Tito Santana. You know, those are all my guys back in the day. You know, you had all your 80s guys that were larger than life. You know,
that golden era.
Yeah, you know, and people still remember them. The Iron Sheik. Okay, if the Iron Sheik was around today, would he be as over? They would just think, oh, it's just a gimmick. He's like Bailey, or he's like this. You know what I mean? Like, would the Iron Sheik have the impact today that he did back then? You know,
not.
If you look at a lot of characters today,
Maybe if Hulk Hogan was still here too.
30 years.
I was going to say Sheik, the Iron Sheik, the character.
Right.
It wouldn't. The Iron Sheik, the human being, before he. Oh my God, yes, that guy is. You could have put cameras on him. Like once he retired out of wrestling.
Listen, when he
Like,
was
Well,
anytime he was on Howard Stern was gold.
Yeah, to that point.
Yes.
To that point, when you are a worker and you know a wrestler, and you have that taste of the limelight in front of an audience, it's a drug. And the Sheik, once he got out of the business and he couldn't wrestle anymore, he wanted to be in front of the cameras. So he created that. All that was a work.
Oh yeah.
Everything that he said, F Hogan, they were good friends. There was no animosity there. They made each other. They made so much money together.
Oh yeah.
So when fans look at this stuff and they go, "Oh, those guys hate each other," you're being worked.
His last tweet was "fuck Hogan." Okay, that was his very his last tweet before he passed away.
Exactly.
Fuck Hogan.
But you know, and Hogan would laugh. You know, he'd be like, "That's a Sheik, man."
Mm-hmm.
So,
And people forget too of Khosrow, you know, the man. Like, I mean, he was one of the most legit people in the company too. And that was the provision or a request from Bob Backlund's, like, I'll drop it to Iron Sheik because I know that he's a legit athlete. Yeah. But Iron Sheik was the perfect transitional champion to go from Backlund to Hulk Hogan. Yeah. You know, and plus, I mean, like your guys' point. Perfect storm. Yeah. And I mean that solidified Iron Sheik's career. Yeah. I mean, he forever had, you know, yes, I was the WWF champion. yes, Hulk Hogan beat me. And then, I mean, up until his last tweet, you know, it's, oh, F Hulk Hogan, you know, all that.
Right. Like,
That's the beauty of wrestling is like it's entertainment, you know. And these guys are going to work the fans until their dying breath, you know. And that's the beauty of it.
I watched
Giant thumb push.
Literally, I watched
so
I,
good.
You know? But 80 something,
Wow.
that's a good long life. So I mean, I hope it wasn't, you know, I hope it was a peaceful passing. And
his documentary on A&E, the one that just came out, or what was it, last year, this year, whenever that one came out. I didn't know the reason why he won the gimmick battle royal is because he couldn't take a bump.
Right.
He
Yep.
couldn't go over
Couldn't
the top.
go over the top.
Cool, so what do we do here? He
It's
just
a long
wins.
way down.
He just wins.
But this is great. This is great too because I got something came up in my feed, and it was the Rocky Maivia versus the Sultan at WrestleMania, whatever. It might have been Rock's first WrestleMania, and Sultan had Bob Backlund and the Iron Sheik as his managers for whatever reason. I mean,
For whatever reason.
and
Why
so they're beating down Rocky, and then Rock's dad, Rocky Johnson, comes in and they fight. And Iron Sheik, even at that age, he's taking great bumps, man. Boom, he's kicking his feet out. It's incredible. So go back and watch the end of that match. You'll see the Sheik take some. That was probably some of his last bumps he ever took.
Probably.
You know,
I will say it was a missed opportunity at WrestleMania 37 because of Bobby Heenan's hilarious line from WrestleMania 17.
Yeah.
By the time the Iron Sheik gets to the
Right.
ring, it'll be WrestleMania 38 or 38. I'm
Yeah.
sorry. Have him show up at 38. Oh, I made it to the
Yeah, but-
WrestleMania. You know?
that would have been awesome.
Oh yeah. Oh, I love the gimmick battle royal. I mean, I think that's one of those one and done things because I mean you can't replicate all the goofy characters, but also the presentation of it of having of Gene Okerlund and Bobby Heenan doing the commentary for it and just like you know time hadn't passed and what they were saying and ripping on each other. Just wonderful.
Personalities like that will never exist again, where you know guys can feed off each other. It's so scripted now, and Vince is in their ear, or whoever's in their ear, and I mean, there's some freedom now with Triple H or whatever, but like the way that Bobby Heenan would just say whatever he wanted.
Yeah, he didn't.
Nobody
care.
was in his ear going, Bobby, you know, you can't say that. I mean, some of the stuff he said was just what?
Yeah,
and you would
go
pop
watch
at
Nitro.
that.
Go watch some of the shit he said on Nitro.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
doesn't make any sense.
I just go on
It was
YouTube
hilarious,
and best
man.
of Bobby, dog, and you can get hours of him just.
I would love for
Absolutely.
fans to go back and watch Bobby Heenan because I mean, like one of the people always said he was one of the best workers, not just as a manager, but he would go in there and take bumps and just help the match get over because he knew what a heel was supposed to do: put the babyface over, make the fans go nuts.
He gets kicked out of Monday Night
That's
Raw,
it.
the first
Yeah,
Raw.
I was gonna
he's
say
trying
my
to get
big
in.
thing on Bobby, right? So like Bobby, like in the prime time of television wrestling, when it's getting its most exposure to the nation, right? My man's not a wrestler at this point.
Yeah.
He's commentary, he's an announcer, he's a manager, he's every other thing but he's literally the show minus the wrestling portion of it, and people are you're literally tuning in to hate on this guy, or if you're like an original Smark from back in the day, you're like, yeah, this guy's great, I love him, tell these, you know. But like it was all about the, and he's not the wrestler, he's not the thing you're actually tuning in for, but he's the reason you keep coming back weekly.
Well, yeah, you got to know him like family members, you know, like him and Gorilla together. Or I love Jesse the Body. He's my favorite announcer because he was so smart and like he would break it down, like analyze it, and you know, you're like, yeah, he makes sense, you know, because he was a wrestler. So he would just tell it like it is, you know.
I do agree. I love Bobby the Brain Heenan and
The Weasel.
Gorilla Monsoon.
Yeah.
Just them bickering back
Yeah.
and forth was always great.
Yeah.
One of my favorite Twitter accounts is I think it's a Monsoon Classics or something like it's along those lines. But
That's a good one.
they'll throw up, you know, not just old clips, but also clips of like Gorilla Monsoon and like and not too long ago they threw up clips of Monsoon towards the end of his on-screen role in the WWF with him and Austin. They had great chemistry together. I would have loved, you know, to see if Gorilla's health would have allowed it, just to have them continue because they were great. And I love how like there's a backstage segment of how about Austin was behaving and so, well, I'll revoke your wrestling license right here, you know, using that old school term. And then,
Yeah,
you know,
well, yeah, he made it credible. Like, oh, you have a wrestling license, you know?
Yeah,
Throwing things like that.
made it credible. And then Austin coming out, you know,
you know, they call you a gorilla, but you're out here hee-hawing like a jackass. One of his all-time great lines.
That's good.
So I was gonna say something to tie in, but then we got well past that point. We were talking about the Miz. So the Miz and 2003 go together because this is the year that Mike Mizanin comes off of reality TV and actually lives his dream and starts the journey of which we were just talking about in 2003. Also, some honorable mentions in the 2003 era. Drew McIntyre started.
Yes.
Some people we know, like on the indie level with us, Mickey Knuckles.
Okay, yeah.
John Wayne Murdoch.
Yep.
Where was it? I had it pulled up because I don't memorize stuff. It's not about me. No, I'm kidding. But where'd it go? You had said John, said him, Mizanin, El Idolo, Andrade, and then Mr. Ricochet. Just for some notable folks.
Yeah, so those guys are in their 20th year anniversary there.
You know, like half of them you wouldn't even like. You look at them, you're like, they're still so young. Like, no, man, surgery, makeup, it all gets there.
You know, some people that started probably when they were under 18. You know, it's funny because when I started wrestling, so I started training in 2006. I was 20 at that time, and then had my first match at 21. But JT Lightning, you know, like I remember he would tell us, you know, if we weren't signed by 30, because that was the mentality at the time. If you weren't signed by 30, hang it up because you'll be considered too old, which is hilarious to think now.
DDP.
Well, not just that, but
PCO.
like, well, look at the top guys in WWE, like Brock in his 40s, AJ Styles in his 40s.
And to that point, the main event guys were the guys, the veterans that paid their dues. You know, Flair, you know, he got the push real early in the NWA, but he carried the gold into, you know, late 40s. You know, I think he was at least in his 40s when him and Steamboat were in 89, you know, so, and then he worked all through the 90s, went to WWE, came back to WCW.
Yep.
The older guys are looked at as, you know, they have psychology. You know, they're not going to do anything really stupid to hurt themselves. So, I mean, like AJ, I remember he got signed like right before he turned 40, I think, in WWE. I think it was either. So, I mean, he's like 46 now. So he's been there for a while. But, you know, it's just if you take care of your body, you know, you can hang with the younger guys.
For sure. It's a good one. You got anything interesting to talk about?
I did a little fantasy booking.
Oh, fantasy booking with Scotty
for the Canadian.
The Canadian.
Some IWR fantasy booking.
All right,
well,
here we go.
It's not really.
We are live from Ontario, Monroe, Canada.
Yeah.
So,
I did train. See, the reason that works is I trained in Canada.
okay.
So, and Johnny Bravo, we trained together in 96. So, I mean, we went through the school together. So, it's like that's why there's a connection.
It's full circle almost.
Full circle.
Yeah. Slowly just all connects.
Yeah.
So, all right. So, in a match, this is all fantasy, obviously. So, you two versus Andre and Big Show. Who's winning?
Well, we are.
How?
He said how? He said
how? What happens? Please explain.
Let the man talk. Let the man talk.
How does that one happen? How does that work?
Well, okay, they're really big.
Okay.
Okay, and we're much agile and quicker and faster, and our reflexes are better. So what we would do is they'd have to catch us first. So we would run around a big circle, and Big Show would chase Boone. You said Andre and Big Show.
Yep.
Andre would chase me, and then we just close that gap. And eventually they'd run into each other.
Just knock each other.
Yes, and they knock each other out, and we just jump on.
Just
all right,
cat and mouse.
I mean, listen. I mean, if they run into each other, knock each other down, and if they don't answer the 10 count, it's a victory.
That is true. Okay, I guess
we don't have to win by pinfall. A victory is still a victory.
If they collide and Andre fell on Show,
it's over.
It's 100% because Andre's like a turtle. He ain't getting up, right? But he's also too heavy for Show to lift at the same time.
Yeah. And then we jump on the back, and then one of their shoulders will be down, so we're good.
Exactly.
All right. Okay.
Too easy, Scotty.
Right,
come on, come harder.
As much as I have the strength to body slam Big Show or Andre. I mean, I don't want to upstage anybody. You know what I mean?
Right.
So
Yeah, no.
I think this is why I hire Nate Matson. You know, for his
Work smarter, not harder.
That's
for
right.
strategy.
fair.
All
Yeah,
right. So this next one's a handicap match. This one's all involve you guys.
Uh-oh.
So this is a handicap match. You guys
So it's
versus
you two.
the entire NWO. Like every
All 85
last
members.
member of the
2,386
like every part, anything that's
Okay.
in NWO.
It starts with Hogan and Rodman, though.
This one's easy. Okay. If they all start
Yeah.
if they all start feeding in, Sting's gonna propel down, drop us each a bat,
That's
Okay,
fair.
okay,
and then
that's
we
fair.
just beat
Okay.
them off like they did. Wait, that didn't sound.
Close.
I'll save it. I'll save
However,
it.
we cannot edit that out.
Be too relaxed.
They'll just be
And then they win.
hit him. 1, 2, it's over.
Because
Anyway.
here's the thing that the NWO is deathly afraid of: bats. So
That's true.
All you need is
Or Sting.
And if worse comes to worse, we'll call up DX.
Right.
They
Exactly.
could come.
They got
down.
a
And
tank.
Sting's
Um,
vulture can come down and poop on them all.
But Sting doesn't fly down. He's already standing there. He's
Yeah.
at ringside as a fan of Sting. He's
Or
dressed
is-
as a fan.
Well, he takes off the
Sting
mask
dressed
and
as
it's
a
him.
Yeah, I love
Wait,
that.
or is he the?
I
is
love-
he the red and
I
black
love that
Sting,
that
so he's
spot
involved?
happened like
I love
so many years ago, and then it still somehow was
He's
able to
involved.
trick
He's on the opposite
fans
side.
in today's day and age on the AE dub. I'm like watching that. I'm like, oh shit, it was Sting. Damn it.
He
I
got
f-
us again.
Sadly, I found a loophole. He said every member of NWO, so Sting would be on the opposite side wearing red and black.
Well,
But
okay,
they
I
could
was
have the-
thinking just the Hollywood, NW Hollywood. But so all the
He said-
I said the
Wolfpack,
entire-
and
entire
Hollywood,
NWO, so that means all
2000,
of
the
them.
NWO from
Oh, gosh.
WWE.
He said from
I kind of
WWE.
found a loophole. I'm sorry, so you have to go back to that.
well, okay.
All right.
Well, Bill Goldberg comes out.
There it is.
What do you got? Anything? Let's see.
I think Goldberg is
Goldberg is
a good
next.
idea.
He's out.
DDP can help you.
DDP.
Oh, you know what? I'll tell you what.
Where's Piper? Call
I'll,
up Piper. He'll be
I'll
there.
out wrestle Scott Hall,
Okay, I like that.
Razor Ramon, grab the cattle prod from him,
Because you know he's gonna
There
have
you
it.
go.
That's true.
and we'll use it on
Yeah.
each
There
and
you go.
every
Go
single
work.
person that
Yeah.
comes
I'll,
through.
I'll grab the toothpick out of his mouth.
Yes.
Why
Jab him in the eye.
And then Nash will tear a quad, stepping over the rope. And then let's see.
We love you, Kev.
Yes.
Jesus.
Let's see. Buff
Buff.
will
He'll be too busy posing.
Buff.
Yeah.
Yeah, Buff will be
he'll
doing his
posing,
stuff.
his muscles won't be able to the ropes.
The only one I'm worried about is Scott Norton.
Dude, he's
Yeah.
He was like
That's
really
strong.
super. He was like really super tough and
Let's
strong.
talk about dangerous
Man,
man.
when Muda
Scott.
comes, he was a part of it too.
Well, then you're gonna lose your vision.
Bischoff always sneak behind, so you got
Yeah.
him too.
He's a sneaky one.
I like how
And
you
then
put Bishop. Like
you
we
got-
just said Muda, then you're like, and don't forget about Bischoff.
Yeah.
Like,
Bischoff is
Yeah.
behind. He sneaks in. Don't worry
Vincent
about
will
him.
come in there.
but he's gonna try to sell you a picture that he's not in for $20.
And that, we
Oh,
both have
man.
firsthand accounts of that.
Oh, boy.
That's
So-
factual.
Wait. I caught a timeout from the fantasy book here. I want to hear your story about Vincent.
I'll start first. So Virgil is the very first pro wrestler I've ever met. 2003 was at the Franklin Park Mall in Toledo.
2003. This actually is
This
relevant.
It's
I
all
mean,
connects.
it all winds back to the year. Me and my friends, because we're in high school, 17. Our options are limited of what we can do. We go to the Franklin Park Mall, hanging out. There happens to be a card show going on. And my buddies were big into like Magic the Gathering, things like that. That wasn't really my speed. So I jokingly asked one of the vendors, hey, man, are there any wrestling cards here? It's like, well, I don't have any cards, but there's a wrestler here. Like, wait, what? Yeah, outside the Elder Beerman. Go find out for yourself. Who is it? Oh, I don't know, but he says he's in the WWF. Okay. So I walk towards the Elder Beerman and I'm excited, but also thinking, what is this? I walk closer and I see the banner
Oh yeah,
the banner that says WWE Superstar Virgil.
Yeah.
There's a little television with all of his greatest matches playing.
Him versus DiBiase at SummerSlam.
Oh my
Yep.
gosh.
I think that's probably the main one that's playing.
It's the only one. It's just on loop.
You know, he's nowhere near his table. I look to my left and he's talking to some other guy because clearly there's been a rush at his table and he's just taking a break, brother. And then when he sees me coming, I've never seen a man move so fast to get back to his table. Oh, hey man, how you doing? You like my assortment of pictures here? I'm like, oh yeah, it's great here, you know. And I've already been suckered, you know. I'm going to buy a picture, so I guess all right, I guess I'll pick one of him and DiBiase. But before I could pick it, he shoves a Wolfpack license plate in front of me. It's like, how about this one? How about this one? I'm like, okay, what's your name? Ben. All right, how much do I owe you? $15, man. Like, oh God. All right. So I hand him the $15. Of course I do. Yes. I will never give it away.
No.
I will never give it away. But yes, I mean, I still have it, and talked with him for a few minutes about his wisdom of how wrestling's going. He claimed in 2003 that the WWE is all about Kevin Nash, which is incorrect.
Clearly.
When I asked him about TNA wrestling, he just did like that and then provide a good reason as to why he thought TNA was.
They didn't book
him.
Right.
Exactly.
He wasn't getting paid.
Him. Well, I thought that was hilarious that he thought in 2003 the WWE was all about Kevin Nash. Keep it in mind, this was the summer, so like he just had the Elimination Chamber match at SummerSlam, was gone from television after that.
Yep.
You know, shaved his head, but like when he had that hair versus hair match with Jericho and he bleached his hair blonde, you're like, okay, I know who's losing this match, because that's when he was filming the Punisher movie.
Yep.
Yeah.
I just thought that was such a hilarious thing. But yes, that's my Virgil. And then years later at the first ever Heroes and Legends show in Fort Wayne, we were on the show and I'm making my way towards the locker room. Of course, Virgil's there, you know, hawking his merch and everything. He stops me like, oh, hey man, you know, I got a table over here if you want to check out what I have. It's like, listen, I'm on the show, Virgil. Ooh, he said, and then he walks away.
All right. Well,
I'm on the show.
He somehow worked himself into having a match because he was not booked for a match. So it was a 5-on-5 Legends versus Heroes and Legends match. But Bruce the Barber Beefcake was legitimately upset losing the match and opted to go to the bar to get drunk. So Virgil stepped in and had the match, was in the Survivor Series tag, but he did not bring gear. He had a gray hoodie on, gray sweatpants and just sneakers on. That was his gear.
all right.
That's so awesome.
So there you go. You got two stories for me about Virgil.
I have one question about the first story.
Yeah.
So was he paid by some store in the mall to be there doing a signing, or was Virgil just randomly rolling through this town and he just set up a banner on somebody's post, got like an appetizer and a drink, but just had the banner on the outside as he sat at the table on the inside?
Knowing Virgil, he just showed up. Probably. Well, I mean, because you saw stories of him selling his pictures outside. It was like in New York City, on the subway. I mean, he just and knowing him and how this business, he just shows up places and will strong arm the guy to at least have him set up his table and sell merch.
And you said a Wolfpack license plate, right?
Never in the
not the Hollywood black. Okay, cool. Those were my only two follow-up questions I had and needed answers.
Valuable.
He scammed it off somebody.
Made my day.
Oh man, like so. I don't know why. So there's a place called Gibraltar Trade Center.
Yes,
which is
sir.
a flea market.
Let's go.
Yeah.
Rest in peace.
Yes, one of the greatest places. But they always brought in celebrities or wrestlers, and it'd be a big line. And I was just there looking at whatever, you know. They had a bunch of stuff. They had action figures, stuff like that. So I was in there, and I walk by and I see him, and I see his whole setup, like the TV, the video playing. And I saw him do something really terrible. But I was going to a show that night. I was booked. So I was just killing time before I went to my show. And it was a promotion in Livonia, Michigan called Max Pro. And so I go and I had walked by him and I said, he's like, I made the mistake of telling him I was a wrestler. dumbest thing I ever did.
Oh.
Oh man.
I know some of your friends, and for you to say dumbest thing you ever did.
He just, I mean, he talked to me for an hour about like, man, I worked on top for 15 years and I main evented every night. And it's like, okay, now in wrestling, in wrestling, we're taught to respect our veterans. But I'll make an exception in this case because everybody has these stories where he's just he's a carny. And, and there's carnies in this business that, have burned too many bridges. And like, that's why he's out setting up his table in the
just
subway.
outside shops.
But so I'm talking to him and this little kid comes up and he goes, "Oh, excuse me," and talks to the little kid and the mom's with him. And he goes, "Oh, what's your name?" And gets the kid's name and he signs it to the kid, blah, 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 blah. And then the mom's like, "Oh, that's nice." And he goes to the mom, $15. She didn't even want it. She was just walking by looking, but the kid just showed a little interest. He asked the kid his name, just kind of like you with the thing. And it's like, that's not the kind of wrestler and worker you want to be. You want to, he was just trying to make a quick buck. And so I told him, I'm going to a show tonight. "Oh, is that for Tony Smalls? That guy only offered me $500. Who does he think he is? I worked on top for 15 years with Hogan." And I was like, "Well, okay.
Good for you."
Like he offered you $500 and you're here and you'd rather sit here
And scam moms for 15.
So obviously Tony Smalls never offered him $500. He just was blowing crap out of
even if that was true, like truly you're stepping over dollars to pick up pennies,
right? Exactly. So
you won't accept $500 from a promoter, but you'll gladly scam a mom $15,
right? And there's too many carnies in the business. We're trying to weed them out.
Such a misplay on his part because he could have made $500 and then also still continued to scam moms out of $15 at the show.
500 plus.
Right.
I mean, and even
I'm surprised he didn't.
see, and I
Think of it.
I thought this ended with him following you to
Right.
the show.
no.
He finds a way in.
But
I'm here with Nate. What? No, he's not.
No.
Oh no.
I got one more Virgil story. So my first time doing extra work for WWE was in 2010 in May. It was in Detroit at the pay-per-view over the limit pay-per-view.
I was there. That's my very first WWE event.
There you go.
Boom.
So you remember the period of time when Virgil was brought back for Ted DiBiase Jr.
Yep.
okay, yeah.
Yeah, when he was the $1 Million champion.
Yep.
So my first time there, the other guy that was an extra, he was from OVW. I've never met him before, so I was pretty much there by myself. Scared out of my mind because big company.
Oh yeah.
Don't know what to do. It's just I'm doing my best to conduct myself, check in and all that stuff. The first wrestler that I see, like, and I'm not talking to anyone in the roster, was freaking Virgil.
That's awful.
He's your destiny.
He's at the Joe Louis,
He's just there.
looking around like, man, Survivor Series 92. Wrong year. Me,
That was
Davey Boy,
That was in London.
Ric Flair, and I can't remember who else.
Oh my god.
It very quickly turned from that to just to keep it very PG, telling stories about him and the wrestlers would pick up women at the bars after the matches. But yes, it just quickly deviated from this unforgettable moment to which he forgot about to picking up women, in the span of 5 minutes.
he was main eventing with Hulk Hogan, so
right.
But he
he was good.
Well,
In Detroit in 92 when everybody else was,
Was in London for summer.
Right.
Oh no, he said Survivor Series.
Survivor Series. I
says-
believe that Survivor Series was 91 or 93. I can't remember. I think 91.
With like Hacksaw and who else was in the match? I don't even remember.
Yeah. But anyways, just
All right, I have one last fantasy match for you guys, and you win this one. Actually, like you don't even have to tell me how.
oh,
It's you guys versus Big Murph, and you guys destroy Big Murph. You know Big Murph, right?
Of course.
Okay, yeah.
Who doesn't know Big Murph?
You guys beat his ass.
Fantasy booking? I
Nate-
mean, that should be a reality.
It is real. I do have a reality one. I wasn't gonna mention it.
You
Like,
said that
AKA
match, and Nate
Urban
looked like he
Rock
wished he
Lee over you
didn't know
guys.
Big Murph.
I wrestled Big Murph one time. I mean, I tried to wrestle. I don't know what he was trying to do. But
I
just getting beat up.
fantasy book when I first did
Just
this. it was
killed our
against Big
producer.
Murph. It was everybody, like the entire roster versus Murph. He loses every one of them.
Well, I
Every
would hope
single one of
so.
them.
But
Scotty
You know.
stays up at night on like his blog on Reddit.
On-
Just
on-
I hate Murph.com / I seriously hate him.
I'll just say this. He was at Skull and Bones, couldn't hang. Now, he's doing what he's trying to do. Good for him.
Uh-oh.
But I mean, he is who he is. That's
Yeah.
all I'll say.
and that's Big
Yeah.
Murph.
That's all I'll say.
I love Big Murph.
I do too.
Good for you.
I know.
Secretly do.
Oh,
Good for you guys.
he's entertaining in like the chic after the WWE kind of way. Where I'm just like,
Something.
what's Murph gonna get into
Murph
this
is
week?
Murph.
He's something.
Murph is a Murph. Let's
Fuck
be
a
real.
Hulk Hogan.
Yeah. Anyways, next topic.
All right. I think that
To be honest, we probably only got a few minutes left. So
We do. So I got one thing before we go to sponsors
Yeah,
because
let-
we
yeah,
talked. We
let-
talked about people who debuted
Okay.
in 90 or in 03. 03, man, it was
The
a
mask came off.
it was a rough year, dog, for like
Kane's mask came
like
off.
on
too.
that flip
was a
side,
big
right?
mention.
Like with like the in memorandum, you know what I'm
Oh.
saying? No, I'm being for real, man. Like 03, like it was a rough year for wrestling, bro. So to start off with, the biggest I would say loss of that year was Mr. Perfect,
wow.
Yep.
Mhm.
the original Sheik
Oh wow.
at 76. You had Miss Elizabeth, Freddie Blassie,
Wow.
Stu Hart, Road Warrior Hawk. I'm just naming the big names. Like it was a Crash Holly at 32,
2003. All these.
and then Danny Fargo. That was, yeah, man. It was, bro. It was a rough
Yeah.
year in that
Me and
regard.
Saban had one of the Road Warriors as a team in one of their last matches.
Wow.
Yeah. And they were awesome. Saban took the Doomsday Device
Whoa.
and he flipped.
So what you're saying is you've wrestled the Road Warriors.
I wrestled 3 times.
That's
Wow.
awesome.
Yeah, me and Saban
I'm
wrestled
jealous.
the Road Warriors.
I'm gonna blow Scotty's mind and pump your ego.
Go ahead.
Ready? You do understand that Nate Matson over here is in a faction with AJ Styles. He just didn't want to like your head, right?
I was going to mention
Him,
that.
Steven Rivera, Briar Wellington, Truth Martini, and AJ Styles. The threat. You're welcome, Scotty. Proceed to do that thing you're gonna do.
Yeah, and that was a whole angle that
Fucking
went about
awesome.
a year. It was pretty good.
Very good one.
Yeah,
That
that
is so
original
cool.
IWR.
That's so cool.
That original IWR, we had brought AJ in a couple of times. I wrestled him. We traded one of the titles there, and then we brought him back for this big 8-man tag, and where all the titles were on the line. So whoever got pinned would win the world title or something. And so he was teamed with Saban and Jimmy Jacobs and this guy Elvis Elliott, and then against us, the Threat. And so then AJ, something happened with him and Saban, and he turned on Saban, gave him a Styles Clash, and threw me on top, and he joined the Threat. So it was-
That's fucking
That's
Yeah.
super
sweet.
sick.
and then he wore a Threat shirt on TNA that week. It was pretty cool. I'll have to find a footage of that, but he's wearing a Threat shirt.
That's pretty cool.
I'm about it. That's so cool.
Yeah, that's pretty
Scotty's gonna have the footage before you can find
I'm
it,
gonna look
and
at
you
that.
own the
This is so
footage.
cool.
right?
That's so
I've
He's
seen
cool.
going to find it and send it to you before you can.
No. Wait, Nate, I got that stuff you were talking about.
I got that stuff.
Scotty's gonna be messaging you all week now. Thankfully, Keith had arranged this interview, or else you'd think Scotty'd be at your house. Like,
That's
Nate,
not true.
He slept on my couch at my old apartment.
No, I didn't.
No,
you.
If you did, now that was weird. 'cause
I'm just.
I'm gonna change my locks now.
He's going to. I was waiting for you to go. Do you still have that couch?
No, I don't have that couch
I
anymore.
need a couch for my man cave.
I love it. Yeah, it's great.
Yeah, like so Jeremiah, real quick. I know that we're getting towards the end, like the losses in 2003, but I really remember like Freddie Blassie and how long WWE ran his like tribute videos and everything. Like
Yeah.
by Immortal by Evidence. I
That's
still
what I
think
was
of
gonna
that.
say. Yeah, when I
Yeah.
hear it, I see him. I see classy Freddie Blassie with his cane sitting
Yeah.
sitting in that old gym. I see that. Like I
He's
can see it
awesome.
right now in my head.
And even his last on-screen appearance for WWE where Bischoff wheeled him down and threatened him to get powerbombed through the table by 3-minute warning, but here came the Dudleys to save him. And I remember people thinking like, is Blassie out of it? It's like, no, he's working. You know, he was working. He was great.
Yeah.
You know, right up until the end. And great read, by the way, his book. It's a very underrated book. Especially in the old of wrestling, you know, in the 50s and 60s.
Yeah. It's awesome.
Absolutely.
I don't know how to ask. It's like, to you guys, since you are wrestlers, how do you feel about Jim Cornette? Like, I feel like he's like a world,
I love Jim.
like of knowledge.
Yeah. Well, because I mean, he was brought up just the old territory way, where I mean, it was secretive, it was kayfabe. You protected the business at all costs, and if something was going to hurt business or discredit it, then you know you put a stop to that. And so he still has that passion for, you know, what worked, and they made a lot of money back then, you know, but they also paid a lot of dues. If those guys didn't do what they did, there would be no business today. And that's why I think people misunderstand Jim, because Jim is like, all these guys paved the way and you guys just make fun of wrestling now, you know, like the silly spots. It's entertainment, but you have to do it to a point where you're respecting how it was built. It's the foundation that was laid needs to be respected as you build on it, not tear it down of what they built up. So that's where but I love Jim Cornette, and I've met him. I worked with him at Ring of Honor.
So that's so cool.
Absolutely. I mean, in my interactions with him, just meeting him at shows, I mean, very pleasant man, you know. And I think that, you know, Nate, I have to agree with you that people misconstrue his passion, you know, for him crapping on the business. Oh, well, he's bitter and jaded and all that. Like, no, I mean, and he's right that there's people today, I think, that do more harm to the business than actually do good. They spend too much time making fun of the business.
Yeah.
And I think that it's that more people need to respect and honor the business. And I'll say this point too. I think that Jim Cornette and Paul Heyman are a lot more alike than people realize.
Yeah.
Especially with how Paul Heyman ran ECW and Jim Cornette ran Smoky Mountain. Pretty identical products. I mean, one's more Memphis based and the other is more East Coast based. Yeah,
and they both came up very similar background. You know, started out as photographers, which that's another thing too. It's so easy now to get into the business, where back then, I mean, they would take they knew that these guys were taking pictures and they would get that exposure and they could put these in the programs and this, and our wrestlers, we can sell it to the people. And then finally they earned the trust of the veterans and the promoters, and they let them in, and then they trained them and taught them, you know, from the ground up, because they saw that they could trust these guys with the information. Now they let anybody in that doesn't treat the business with respect or doesn't, you know, handle it like a business. You know, it's not professional. It's more like, oh, this is just this is something fun to do. It's like, well, no, this is something that people got stabbed over. You know, like my trainer Mickey Doyle, he was stabbed because he had so much heat that people, you know, thought it was real. You know, and that's why they kept coming back, because they would get so into it. Now fans, you know, not that I want people to stab us, you know, you know, but my point is people believed, you know, just because it's like going to a movie. You go to the movies, you know, it's a movie. You don't call a movie phony. You don't call a movie fake.
Thank you.
But it is.
You really think
it's fake?
Avengers save
it's
the
more
world?
phony than because of special effects. We don't have special effects.
No, you are the special
effect.
effect.
Firework on your foot and super kick a guy. There's your special effect. But
you guys got Legos and tables.
Yeah, exactly. You know,
but you've stepped on a Lego, Keith.
Right,
that actually hurts.
That's actually
that's just one Lego.
That's actually a good point too, because it's like we used to tell guys, you know, everybody has put somebody in a headlock, you know, your brother, your cousin, your friend. So, you know, if you squeeze, that hurts. But like Legos, like thumbtacks, no one's ever really stepped on a thumbtack. But a Lego, people have stepped on a Lego. Or, you know,
because the Lego is more believable than the thumbtack.
A Lego is more believable than a thumbtack.
For real, though.
You know, it's ridiculous, but in that context,
but it's true.
But it's hilarious. I know that would hurt.
Every mom, every dad in the United
That's for
States
the parents.
can relate to
parents
that
are like,
alone.
oh, I've done that.
Right. That's why you at IWR when the bag of the box of Legos comes out, you just hear the adults go, oh,
And there's
you hear it in the crowd.
And first of all, that's just also like there's no way you're landing on Legos. Like it's not like
It's not you learned how to fall.
It's not
on
fun
Legos.
at all.
I mean,
Wasn't that week 13? Lego week?
I think so.
Lego week.
Lego
that's
week,
right.
week
Lego week,
13.
so.
It's in the new curriculum.
Right.
but no, to Nate's point, just that I mean, like, yeah, we could talk about things like that, but like, it's too, like I said, too easy for people to get in the business where it's like, okay, or people or new students will get upset. It's like, well, I didn't get my first match yet. And like, brother, you got to earn it. Like, so I came in, I think I'd like to say like the tail end of like the last generation, and it took me, I trained in August. I didn't have my first match until April, and it was a tag team battle royal, of which Nate Matson was in. He was in my first match.
Which is pretty funny that he was his first indie show. I was in the main event, so it's kind of funny.
Yeah,
our paths
Wild.
later. Then on a whim, like it was like 2008. We were working in Cleveland, and this promoter and booker was just paired us together randomly because I was teaming with Truth Martini. Truth broke his neck, and so I was going solo. But we'd already established this gimmick, this Michigan thing we were doing. And so we kind of revamped it and we called ourselves the Sons of Michigan. People knew Ben was from Ohio. So the angle was, and we did this on TV. This TV went all over the country. And we had him in vignettes where he moved to Michigan and he denounced his Ohio citizenship.
Wow.
And that was heat because there's a rivalry
Ohio
between
hated
Michigan
you.
and Ohio. An Ohio boy moved to Michigan. Boo.
Boo.
And so we were Sons of Michigan for a long time.
That's really cool. I like
but
that.
That's
and
a good
then
one.
that was just fate, bringing us together. But it's just funny because he had, an idea of who I was before, so he knew coming into it. I'm looking at him like, who's this guy, But then I see him go through this huge transformation. He gets in great shape. He starts taking this business serious. He's learning from guys that he's being introduced to. He's going on the road with Rhino, and that's how you do it. You pay your dues. You attach yourself to people that can help you, and then you just stay humble, and then the right opportunities will come along. And then if you're ready for them, then boom, And this guy's been on WTV more than anybody around here. You'll see him getting slammed by Omos and all the other stuff.
I watch old footage all the time. I'm like,
I swear I just seen him on Raw.
He's been a doctor. He's been a nightclub doorman. He's been,
He was at a
everything.
wedding once. I seen him on Raw most recently with Rollins and Balor.
that guy gave me a rose once. Oh, that guy right there.
He was security in 2010.
And that takes a lot. That takes a lot for WWE to look at him as someone who's trustworthy, dependable, responsible, and that's a big deal, So
Well, thank you for that.
That's very true.
To add to your guys' stuff real quick with the you're the last so when I got in, it was right before COVID.
Yeah.
And I'm paying dues left. Like I still go and pay dues. Like it's that you guys see me at IWR. That's literally my job besides being awesome is I'm there making sure everybody else is paying the dues. And it's but so before COVID, not getting bookings, right? It's literally like you're paying dues, you're earning your spot, people are getting to know your name. They're like, oh, okay, that kid's cool. Like he can bring stuff to the back now. We'll let him into the back, right? Because back in you didn't even get to go into the back. You didn't even get to the locker room. Who cares if you're a trained wrestler? You're not on this show. You don't belong in this room. You can do security out here. If somebody invited you in back there, get in, get out. You know what I mean? But COVID happened and it changed because a lot of guys were concerned about their health and stuff. But carny business is what carnies want to do, and they want to keep running because this is the only way I can make income is running my wrestling show. And now it's like all the opportunities are here, and then it never went back.
Well, and that's the thing. We have to police ourselves, and that's the thing is a lot of people quit the business because they didn't know what was going to happen. A lot of, you couldn't even get to Canada. And I took a lot of bookings in Canada. They closed the border. So, and then WWE was very strict. Everyone had to get their shots, this and that. And you just didn't know how fast it would spread. You couldn't, and then people would be in contact with people and they wouldn't tell nobody. So then you'd be like, oh crap, now you got to get tested. It's a big hassle. So I didn't work for a year. I took a year off during COVID because it's like, I didn't want to get my wife sick or anything like that. But the business did change. But it's our responsibility to police it to where you can't just let anybody in, and the locker room is sacred. The locker room is like, that's where we can feel safe. We can feel like, we can go about our business. We don't have to worry about nobody. But if I see somebody I don't recognize and if they don't introduce themselves, I'm going to say, who's that? I don't want them in here. Get them out,
And yeah. And by policing, not just like, oh, well, Nate Matson said this about my match 5 years ago. And I thought he was a jerk. So I'm just gonna say something on Twitter and just make it a big crap storm. I mean, that's not what he means by, policing, but it's like, the bad attitudes, the entitlements, all that stuff. Cause I mean, wrestling's not that big of a world, you know what I mean? So, I mean, if you piss off way too many people, chances are you're not going to get work for much longer.
And that's my number one thing that I tell everybody. Don't burn bridges. We're all lucky to be a part of this. It's a gift, and if you make it at all, which is very hard, it's harder now. It was hard when I started. It's even harder now because it's like there's thousands of wrestlers and they all want the same job that you want. So, I mean, as long as you can be respected by your peers and by promoters, that's what really matters. It's like, because there's only so many opportunities on television but there's a lot of opportunities behind the scenes, and there's a lot of, I can go in any state and introduce myself and be like, oh, I've heard of you. So that's the kind of reputation that you want. It doesn't matter if it's, oh yeah, you're the world champion, yeah, everybody would love that paycheck, but there's also a lot of responsibility that comes with that. Make a wish and everything else.
For sure.
I just seen something. I forgot who said what the story was, but there's like someone lost the championship and they're like, thank God somebody took the title away from me.
Yeah.
I was boxing, I think. It might have been boxing or UFC or something like that.
Yeah.
The person lost the title belt and they were like, thank God, I don't have to put the work in anymore. I don't have to be the champion.
Yeah.
I don't have to be the champion.
I don't have to be the champion.
That right there, and this, Ric Flair will go down as the greatest world champion ever because he took that job seriously.
Oh, yeah.
And
Absolutely.
anyone else, to that point, I think it was Jack Briscoe. He had it for like a while, a couple years, and his wife was mad because he was never home, and she's like, "You got to drop this thing because I'm going to divorce you." And so Jack dropped the belt to Dory Funk or whoever, and that's just wrestling, man. If you're the champion, you had to wrestle in every little town, and you had to wrestle all over representing the company. That's a lot of work.
It's a very rare breed of guys like your Flairs,
Yeah.
your Hogans, Austins,
Yeah.
hell, even Cena,
Yeah.
of guys that can be, 16-time champs or however many times they have held it, make the towns week in, week out for however many years.
Plus going on Regis and Kathy Lee.
Oh my God.
Getting
for
up
sure.
for a flight at 5 a.m.
Cena with the Make-A-Wish.
Yeah.
Because he set the record
Yes.
during that reign as
And on top of
champion,
that,
bro.
So it's like, it's not easy.
No.
That's insane.
That's why it bothers me when, me and Ben and Jeremiah, we would love a contract with WWE, and that's the thing is the guys that are there and they complain. You know how many people would love to be in their shoes?
Right.
You're on
Oh, yeah.
television. You have an action figure. People know who you are.
For real.
And and then when you do get released because you did complain, you're going to look back and kick yourself. Say, if I just wrote it out and was a good soldier and did my job and was available and ready when my opportunity came. But these guys, they blow it for themselves,
or
bad attitudes
or they'll, vent their frustrations on, let's call it what it is, dirt sheet.
Yeah.
People who they're not there for the benefit of pro wrestling. They're there to tear it down. As much as they say like, oh, well, we're big passionate fans. No, you're not. Fake news is the popular buzz term the past several years, but they create the fake news, that even still people to this day will believe, certain backstage, rumors or all that, it's like, well, this happened because it was written here. It's like,
leaving.
no,
it
wasn't.
Shelton Benjamin's leaving WWE. AEW's opening to talk to him or whatever, and he
All
tweeted
clickbait
back.
stuff.
No, they didn't. You're lying. It's not true.
Right. You know what I mean? It's just stirring the pot, it's in it for themselves. You know what I mean? Like
Clickbait.
Right.
Exactly. But anyways, so
And then you have to skip all the way through. You can't just click on the comment and see what the article's about.
Yeah.
Click on the article. I don't care that much.
but
That's
yeah,
fair.
you know, if you're there and don't appreciate it, you know, or anywhere, WWE, Impact,
Yeah.
AEW, wherever, and you're there complaining, leave. That's
Yeah.
that's the solution. Leave.
Yeah,
Take some-
be a contributing factor to the company's success as a whole. Don't be selfish and worry about yourself, because if you're looking at the betterment of the whole team, then that's where you connect with everybody, and they're all going to want to see you succeed. So it's like these guys that are just kind of like by themselves. That's just the worst mentality to have.
Absolutely.
You team player.
Yes.
Team player.
Absolutely.
Moral of the story: be
Yes.
a team player.
in team, baby.
All right.
All right.
Well, I think it's been a great show. Thanks, guys.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thanks
for being here.
Before we sign out completely, once again, we want to thank our sponsors real quick. So we want to send a huge thank you for the love and support to Maya's Fresh Mexican Grill, the Little Brown Jug,
Yeah.
Neiman Cannabis, Monroe Sports Center, Lane's Pizzeria for all your delicious pizza needs,
Gold lanes.
Mugsy's Bar and Grill, 8 Mile Vodka,
Closed.
Deb's Floral, FP Wrestling, which will be coming up again soon, IWR, DTW, and Pro Wrestling Edge. Thank you all for your love and support, and we shall see you next Monday for episode 17.
Woo.